Hello and welcome back to Processing the Process as we capture and discuss the technical, psychological, and contextual dynamics that shape the process of creating a work of art in both the performing arts and the business world. Week by week, we are following Anthony Mangone, owner of Trattoria 632 in Purchase, New York, as he navigates the internal struggles and external circumstances that impact the development of his restaurant business. Last week, we discovered that politics is the perfect training ground for running a restaurant. The skill set required for both endeavors is essentially the same. And we started to see how Anthony's philosophies and approaches derived from his political experiences enabled him to create a very unusual and very special restaurant. So this week, we'll continue the conversation about Anthony's unorthodox approaches and philosophies, and then we'll start delving into business operations. So, Anthony, you once told me that your staff learns by observing you and that you take as many opportunities as you can to point out different scenarios, kind of demonstrate how you deal with them, and then the staff goes and basically emulates you and practices those kinds of skills.
Yes, and I think it starts from when a customer walks through the door here, where we try and foster a very friendly, family-type atmosphere.
Exactly.
I think you've probably observed it on your own.
Absolutely,
where
I have.
A customer will walk through the door and the first thing they're greeted with is one of our servers or one of our front of the house people, greeting them with a hug or a kiss or a hug, shaking of the hand. They know who they are, and I like to believe that happens from them seeing how I interact with the same people, and so that it gives them the confidence to be able to do that. Bringing them over to a table to say, introduce them and say, hi, do you know my friend Sherri? Just so you know, this is a very dear friend of mine. Please make sure they're okay. And then that interaction starts to grow organically between the server and the customer, where they start to realize, hey, this is not just someone who just walked through the door. This is actually someone that Anthony knows. He knows them well. He knew them well enough to bring me over to introduce them to him.
Yes.
And as a result, I feel like I now have a relationship with that person. And that's how it works.
That's great. And also, it seems that they are watching you perform multiple roles and recognizing, this needs to be taken care of, this needs to be taken care of, or here you go the extra mile for deliveries, for example, by putting in a special unexpected dessert.
Yeah, so
and they see these things.
They do, and they recognize it. And for instance, on any evening, I might be expediting food in the kitchen, and we have these tickets that come through on our computer, and it'll actually show a person's name at the bottom. So if it's a name that I recognize, I immediately, first of all, we want to make sure all the packages go out correctly. But if I recognize the name, I'm like, I want to make sure, for instance, Terry tries our special this evening for dessert that my mother prepared. I think she would really like it. It has chocolate in there. We package it up. We send it over, with our compliments. And more often than not, I'll get a text from the person saying, hey, I know you must have saw my delivery before it went out because you sent over these really great cookies that your mother baked and they were phenomenal. I just wanted to say thank you. And just think of that for a moment. Think about how special that person must feel when they're getting their package at night. They already ordered their meal, and all of a sudden they open up their surprise and they say, oh, Anthony must have saw this order going out and he wanted to make sure that I received this. Same holds true where I'll walk by, I'll see that there are a lot of deliveries that need to get out. I'll put them in my car and I'll go take them myself. And it's so crazy because sometimes I'll walk to a person's house and it'll be a customer. They'll say, what are you doing here? And I say, I saw your delivery sitting there. I wanted to make sure that you got it as quickly as possible. I put it in my car and I brought it over. And I can't say what they say behind closed doors, but I have to imagine that it means something to them.
Oh, yes.
That I'm showing up, that I recognize that their order was there, and I wanted to get it to them as quickly as possible. I have no way of, seeing a barometer as to what level of success that brings to it, but just internally, instinctually, from knowing what I've done in the past and how to connect with people, that there is a nexus between that person continuing to come back here time and time again.
Exactly, and your staff is observing all of this.
Correct.
And then, so that they then can move forward, because you are not here every single hour, almost every hour, but not every hour.
That's true. Yeah, and you want to make sure that when you're not here, that again, they've bought into your philosophy, and they see it sitting there. They want to make sure that everyone leaves happy.
Exactly. Now, we know that exemplary customer service and a warm, welcoming family atmosphere are by now in the DNA of the restaurant. But you also set out to make sure that you provide the best product possible. What does that mean?
Again, this is not a business that I had any experience in prior to getting involved in 2010. And if you follow the philosophy of a very large portion of the industry, everything is based upon margins, like in any business. Like in any business, there are certain margins that you have to meet in order to be profitable. One thing that we try to adhere to here is making sure that we get the best possible product that we can serve to a customer. And if you recall, just to circle back, I told you that the original philosophy here when we first opened was a pizza restaurant, and now it's kind of changed where it's more of a restaurant that has a pizza oven and pizza station.
Right.
And I say that for a reason, because what has happened over time, particularly since I took over, is we've made sure that every product that goes onto the table is the best quality. So, you may go down to a great steakhouse and say, oh, I had this wonderful steak, and I'll say, that's great. I'm not saying that ours is better, but I could tell you that as far as quality goes, it is the same quality that you had at that steakhouse. Or I had a great piece of fish. I'm sure it was wonderful. There is not going to be a fish that is better than mine, because I am going to give you the same par as a top restaurant, understanding that I may not be able to charge the same pricing because of certain things, and we want to make sure that we maintain a certain level of financial well-being, where people can come back time and time again, and that's not just a once every 2 months special occasion restaurant. So where I may lose a small margin as a result of me buying a higher priced product, I make up for it in the fact that the person's a repeat customer.
Exactly.
So, I buy the best quality veal. I buy the best quality fish. I make sure it's fresh. I rotate my fish daily. There is no fish on my menu. We have salmon is the only fish. Every other special that you hear is a fish that's rotated daily or every other day, so that we make sure that when it gets onto the table, it's fresh, it falls apart. We make sure that when they leave, the people understand that there's nothing here that's ever frozen, which a lot of restaurants will do. It's a lower cost, and as a result, a higher margin. But the juxtaposed position to that is, that person may leave there and say, this was a horrible meal, and you could taste the difference in the quality, and they're never going to come back. So yeah, you were able to make a higher profit margin on that one particular dish, but you lost that person as a customer.
Exactly. But now these were things that you had to learn over time. What's the difference between grain-fed veal, as you once told me, and not? What's the difference between day-boat scallops versus wet scallops? I remember you're telling me all of this.
And I just, I have a very dear friend of mine who is a big scallop lover. and I have made him have scallops many times here. Now wherever he goes, he's disappointed, and the reason being is we use, for instance, a day boat scallop, which is a fresh scallop. A lot of times when you go into restaurants, you'll taste a scallop and it almost has an ammonia taste to it. And it comes as a result of it being a wet scallop. And what happens is, when the fishermen obviously gather the scallops, in order to keep them fresh so that they can distribute them, they inject them with a chemical. And the chemical is done to preserve the shelf life of the product. But that comes out, you taste it, and so wherever he goes now, he's disappointed because he'll order and he'll say, no, that just wasn't the right kind of scallop, and you can taste it in the difference. Same on the veal side, you go into a lot of different restaurants. I've had meat purveyors who've come in and they say, you don't need to order the top round, the veal top round, the milk-fed veal. We can give you a different part of the calf. It'll lower your costs, and you could still charge the same. I said, look, I've been here for quite a long time. My clientele, tends to be a more affluent community. They can really go and afford to eat wherever they like. They're going to know the difference, and they're going to know if I've shifted product, and they will be able to see that. They'll be able to see it in the quality of when they go and cut it. It'll be tougher. I said, and I'm just not in that business. I'm here to stay. I'm not here to try and make a one-time hit and run out. And the purpose of being in business is for longevity and consistency.
Exactly. You told me that your original goal for the restaurant was to develop repeat customers whose first choice for dining in or out is Trattoria 632, and that you ideally wanted your target audience, who you thought of as soccer moms, perhaps a overused moniker, but nonetheless, that they would come once a week, for example, with their kids, once a week with their friends, once a week with their spouse, and maybe the fourth time a week they order in. And you have, I think in a previous Videocast, let us know that in fact that has happened. How are you able to get people to come back that often?
So I go back to my training from politics, and we would have consultants that would come in and they would say to us, who do you see as opinion makers? And the word that would constantly pop up would be the soccer mom. We want to make sure that we believe those people had the most influence on how a community is crafted, what the makeup of the community is, how they look at, for instance, social justice reform, things of that nature. And so you need to listen to the heartbeat of your business. And I would often tell our team that when a mom came in and it was after a Little League game, we wanted to make sure that they all left happy. Because undoubtedly what would happen is if they left happy with their children, they were going to spread that word to other moms and other dads who were going to be going out after a softball game or a Little League game or a soccer game. And more importantly, if they had a great experience and they left with our to-go menu, they were going to order delivery. And if they saw that the bar was lively and we had our staff there interacting with customers, they would likely say, I want to come back on one of your evenings when you have music and have a good time with my friends. And then if the meal was really good, they would sit there and say, well, I want to come back with couples on a Saturday night. And so that was always my thought process. And I think we have successfully been able to navigate here in this particular community to make sure that we are in fact a go-to for the families. We had a very busy evening last night, and as I walked through the restaurant, I saw so many different customers.
Excuse me and sorry,
No problem.
everybody.
And I saw a lot of different customers. I was at many different tables. One table in particular, I saw a young lady who is now, I think, going into high school, but I remember her when the family would come in and she was a young kid, and I just couldn't believe. I said, wow, she's grown so much. And she's celebrated her dinner here the night before her bat mitzvah. She's done so many different events here, whether it was after a Little League game, and their older son has just graduated Syracuse University. We discussed that. I remember when he started Syracuse University. So it's just that type of relationship is very commonplace here. We've seen the community grow. We've seen their children grow. We've seen them graduate middle school. We've seen them graduate high school, now graduate college. And it's such a rewarding feeling to know that we're still their go-to place years later.
That's right. That's right. You also have spoken about your desire to constantly have your eye on the expansion of your base.
Yes.
And you've already taken a couple of notable initiatives toward that end. I believe with the Westchester Business Council and the local nonprofits, and
yes.
you host an annual dinner or luncheon?
Yes. So in 2019, we had made some renovations downstairs, and we really, I think, at that point, were hitting full stride, and I wanted to figure out ways for expanding our base and allow other parts of the business community know that we were here.
Exactly.
So we joined the Westchester Business Council. Mm-hmm. We were able to meet with different members of their team. They had different suggestions for us in terms of what we could be doing. And it was brought to our attention that the not-for-profit community, which particularly here in Westchester, do so many wonderful different things. Yes. They're always hosting events, trying to raise money, but no one ever actually goes out of their way to recognize the good work that they do. So we hosted a holiday party to say thank you to them, and it was a lot of different groups, a lot of different shelter groups, different groups to help underprivileged children. We brought them in. It was gratis with our compliments, and they were thanking me. And they said this was really so special for you to invite. I think we had about 50 or 60 people to have them come in, and my answer to them was, no, thank you. I'm glad you had an opportunity to come here, be able to experience our food, be able to experience the environment here.
Right.
And that has only helped us expand our base more, because those same people now will come and have a business luncheon here, or they'll look to us to say, I want to host a party there. And so that's how you expand your base organically without having to go out and spend tons of money on marketing.
Which we'll get to in a moment.
Yes.
You have spoken about the connection between your staff and your customers as evolving organically, and just today in this videocast gave us an example of how that occurs. You have also spoken with me about the importance of allowing the business itself to evolve organically. And I know we started to touch on that a little bit in another videocast, but I wonder if you can explain what that means.
So, we obviously, we've talked about developing our menus. We'll get into that, delve further into that down the road. But you want to make sure that we are touching every customer. And what I mean by that is noting what they need. There are certain customers that require attention to their plates because they may suffer from an allergy, or they may have some sort of allergic to gluten. And we try to make sure that we accommodate everyone's needs. Sometimes their needs may be simply as, they want a particular table, and we could be really crowded, but we try and go out of our way because we know that they're here every week and they love sitting at a particular table.
Right.
And I know it sounds minuscule in some respects, but it's those type of things where you pay attention to those details that allow the business to grow organically, and people note that we go out of our way for them. And what winds up happening is word of mouth is the best marketing that you could do. And so people will sit there and they'll come in and this past Saturday evening, a couple that is here religiously every Saturday. They were here with another couple. They wanted me to meet their friends.
Right.
And it was important for them. I was working in the kitchen, and they said, if Anthony has 5 minutes, I just want him to come out and meet some friends of ours. And it was very important to them that I met them. And it's important to them because they get treated here as part of our family.
That's right.
And it was important for them to introduce their friends to me so that, one, I recognized who they are, but more importantly, that he could show them firsthand, this is the owner, he's become a friend of mine.
Right.
And I wanted him to come out and say hello to you, and it was important enough for him to come out and do that. So I think that's what I mean by when I say he's growing the business organically.
And also, I recall your mentioning, I don't remember your exact words, but the tremendous importance of having your finger on the pulse of your target audience, what they need, what they want, and making changes accordingly. And you had to do that, as you had shared with us in the beginning, when you first had partners and who believed in operating a particular way and had certain philosophies and so forth that I think you felt were not in sync with the community, and you wanted to make those kinds of shifts. So do you always have your eye out for those kinds of things?
It's trends, right? And again, I circle back to, what I did in my prior career in terms of, looking at polling data, right?
Yes.
And you look and you're able to see the trends that are developing, what people want, because they're ordering it in such a high volume, and you start to see the trends. And if something is not working, we remove it from the menu. Mm-hmm. We don't want to have a product there that people are not interested in, and so we'll remove it from our daily specials. But we're able to see real quickly, the trends that develop, and then we sit there and we put our foot on the gas, right? And we make sure that it's always available to them.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times, again, not sitting there and taking a shot at another restaurant, but I think what happens is they don't listen to the pulse. They're not listening to what people like and what they don't like.
Which is astonishing, if you actually think about it. How can that possibly be?
Well, I think we discussed it last time, and I think a lot of times when you go into a kitchen, you'll have a chef back there, and it's his way or the highway, and
right.
They don't want to necessarily take advice and counsel and say, well, look, this is not what people like, and they don't want to hear it. They want to do what they want to do.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you have also said and used the word consistency earlier today, that consistency is the hallmark of a good restaurant. So what elements have to be in place in order to be consistent?
Clearly, it starts with the products.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in that. It starts with the products, highest quality products. Mm-hmm. So you're starting out, that's your base, right? Then you want to make sure that the people that are preparing the ingredients are adhering to the recipes that we've had over the past 7-8 years.
Okay.
That they don't sit there and go off on their own and start making it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And then delving into the customer service side, You want to make sure that you have retention of your employees, that they're adhere to your philosophy. But retention of employees is a very big one as well. So we start with the products. We start with making sure that our team adheres to the how that we prepare our ingredients and how we prepare our formula for our dishes. But most importantly, I think what has helped us dramatically is our employee retention. Because when someone comes in and they're able to connect with the same person that was here 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and it may very well be, for instance, we have a lot of people that come in dropping their children off at one of the 2 area colleges. And so they may not be here for 3 months during the summer, or they may drop them off in a couple of weeks, and it'll be the last time they were here was when they picked their child up. But they'll come in and they'll remember, oh, that's Lewis, oh, that's JC, or that's Des. I was here last year with my son when I dropped them off at college, and it's still the same person. And I think that really does resonate with people.
I agree completely, particularly in an industry that's notorious for high turnover.
It is a very transient employee base. People move constantly. And again, why do they move? They move because, one, they're not happy with the way they're being treated. The pay is not commensurate with what they're serving, or the service that they're providing.
Right.
And so they leave. And,
right.
and we don't have that problem here. We tend to have people that want to stay and want to be here.
Which is fabulous. I can personally attest to how great that feels.
Yes.
When you come in. Well, time to move to business operations, and what we were wondering, what are the different segments of your business, or what I believe you call revenue centers, and what percentage of the overall business do they account for?
So, in any business, I think the most important thing is to be balanced. And we have extraordinary balance here. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you look at our different revenue centers, we have a full service bar, we have indoor dining, we have delivery. And if you look at our numbers, they all essentially run evenly for the most part. So I would say indoor dining probably is about 34%. The bar is probably about another 36%. And then the balance is made up of to-go and delivery. And what that does for you is it allows you to know that your business is going to be consistent all the time. You won't have drop off in the event, obviously, if you have a snowstorm or a catastrophic event like we've been dealing with over the past year.
Of course.
Those things are going to be adversely affected. But when things are operating normally, it allows you, as a business person, to know that everything is going to run accordingly, or should run accordingly, and you'll know right away if it isn't, because you'll be able to look at the numbers and say, we're off here. Why are we off here? Again, was it a snowstorm? No. So what happened that our numbers are dropping there?
Exactly. Also, corporations and universities constitute a pretty significant percentage of your business. What would you estimate that to be?
I would say probably, we're very lucky. Where we're located geographically, we have major corporations in the area. We have colleges here. Understanding that there was a drop-off as a result of the pandemic, but they probably account for about 20% of our revenue, whether it be in dining or delivery that they get.
Right.
So that's important, right? So it's not just that they're coming in to the restaurant; they work locally. They're here. They're calling up for us to deliver for meetings. The students, obviously, when they're in session, they love to order, right?
Oh, yes.
They're not sitting
Remember
there.
it well.
They're not sitting there and they're not cooking. What we've learned there as well is we've had to adapt. We've had to. I think in the next couple of coming weeks, we're going to be introducing our ordering app so that they can download the app and they can order right from their phone. Those are all different things. We're on all the different delivery platforms, Grubhub and things like that. And you need to do that in order to adjust with your client base, because particularly students today, everything is done by their phone.
Absolutely. And what about special events and parties? What percentage of the business do they tend to?
I would say, again, special events and parties, depending on the time of year, when you get into the holiday season, it probably accounts for probably 50% of our business.
Wow.
Because again, you're located, we have accommodations here to have private events, and it allows for the different corporate entities who say, I want to take our team out. We want to but we want to be in a private room. We have that available to them. And then, so if you look at it from a gross standpoint, again, that probably accounts for about another 15 or 20% of our overall revenue for the year. But depending on what time of year it is, it increases. The great thing about it, I think I discussed this earlier, before I had gone away to prison, I had prepared a very thorough outline for them to be able to utilize, and I would be able to explain to them certain times of the year that there was going to be events that would require real attention to detail. One of them would be in the second week of May, when each year SUNY Purchase and Manhattanville College do their graduations. SUNY's is always on a Friday. Right. Manhattanville is always on a Saturday, and they're the same weekend. And so you want to make sure that you're well prepared, and that you're not overbooking the venue, right? We want to make sure that there's enough tables so that people are coming here after their son or daughter has graduated from college, and you want them to have a great experience because they're choosing to come celebrate at your establishment. No different than someone celebrating a religious event. During that particular time of year, you do a lot of communions and confirmations.
Yes.
And then you have the high school graduations in June. And because of where we're located, a lot of the area high schools use SUNY Purchase's facilities for their graduations. So whether it's Armonk or Rye Brook or Blindbrook School System or the Harrison School System, Portchester, they all go there. And as a result of us being across the street, we get all those graduations.
Right.
So what have we done there? So let me give you an example. We know that it's coming every year. We start to hear people call up, and we're going to be North Castle graduating, and it's the Armonk, and we wanted to come in for dinner after the graduation ceremony. So what we've done now consistently over the past, I think about 4 years, is we ask the people, well, if you'd like, if you want to come in and put up some pennants of where your child is going to school, and they say, wow, that's a great idea. And now it's almost become a tradition. And we just did Harrison's graduation, and it was great because the parents come in before time and they're setting up the room, and it's such a great feeling for them to walk in. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about how the room was set up. And they have who's going to what university, and it's a good feeling for them because they're now celebrating with their classmates, but they're also able to show their achievement of where they're going. Sure. And there's not a lot of restaurants that would call you up and say, where's your son and daughter going to school? We want to put up their colors by where your table's going to be, and it makes them really feel good.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting segue into your favorite arena, which is marketing, and Anthony has some very definitive, shall we say, thoughts on what works and what doesn't, and how that's changed over time.
You know, when we first started, we would constantly be badgered by different media outlets doing,
Right.
do you want to do a commercial? Do you want to, again, this is in no way am I minimizing what those venues do. I just never felt sending out an ad in a magazine is going to encourage a person to come and try the restaurant. Maybe it will get them to try it once, but that's really not a way to build your base organically. And so I've really tried to stay away from advertising in newspapers or magazines. I just don't feel that it's effective for the type of business that we operate. I think a much more effective way of doing it is actually, again, reaching out and touching members of the community. And so, you know, Purchase Elementary School, year in and year out, hosts a car wash to raise money. And, you know, we've consistently tried to support them with bringing down, you know, complimentary pizza that they could help give out to the customers who are going in and having their cars washed, or, you know, supporting the local Boys and Girls Clubs, supporting the different Little League teams, giving them an opportunity to come here and have those parties after a game.
That's right.
You know,
you're an integral part of the community.
And that's what you're looking for, right? You're looking to be part of the community. I live here in this community, so it's you know, you get to see, as I said, I've seen some of these children grow, and now they're graduating college, and and you know, they're going off into their careers. So, you know, I remember when they were eating chicken fingers and fries, and now you know, this young man last night was having a veal chop. So, you get to see that type of growth, and to me, that's much more effective than putting an ad in a magazine, spending an inordinate amount of money, not being able to really have a barometer to determine what level of success you had with it. Of course, when they're selling you the ads, they'll tell you, oh, this is going to be going out to 10,000 people, and I sit there and I say, that's great, but how do I get them in here? How is that ad getting them in here? And too often, when you look, again, you look in these magazines, and they're just saturated with restaurants. And I'm sitting there, I'm saying, this person spent a considerable amount of money to put that ad in there. They were better off taking those dollars and using them in a much more pinpointed way to get a person for retention. Retention is a lot more important than just getting a person to come in one time. Retention is much more important.
Absolutely. Well, perhaps, well, I'll call this one of my favorite categories, and certainly some of my colleagues are dying to know about the food, of course. How do you work with your chefs to create your menu, and how has that changed over time?
Again, we want to make sure we first start with the best products, right? But I'll just go back. I think we might have discussed it last time. I'm always reading different trends, you know, to look and see what some of the best restaurants are providing to their clientele. You know, you sit there and you try to emulate what are the trends. So, you know, I was at a restaurant a few weeks ago in the city. It was a very, very good Mediterranean restaurant, and I saw the different products that they had on their menu, and I said, that's really a great pairing that they did, and maybe we'll be able to look at that and introduce it to our customers. So we look at those type of things. The other thing that I remember when I was away, I would get copies of the Times, the Wall Street Journal, and I'd look at the food section. And I would they thought I was crazy because I would the people that work here, I'd cut the articles out
Right.
and I'd mail them, and I would say, please put this on the menu for Saturday evening. It looks like a great dish, and I think everybody will enjoy it. And they would introduce these dishes, and then they would take pictures of them, and then when I came home, they would show me how it looked. But you have to be able to look what's happening outside of these four walls. You can't just sit there and be complacent. You have to be able to change with what the times are. I think we had mentioned one time before, years ago, it might have been a good thing to pair fish with some types of cream sauces.
Right.
You can't do that anymore. It's just not what the health trend is. You want to be more of a Mediterranean style where, fish is prepared with maybe a grain like a farro or something along those lines, where people are conscious of their health. So you really, want to make sure that your daily specials have thought that go into them, that are creative. We're going to be preparing a dish today. It's going to be a tomato that's going to be, stuffed with farro and goat cheese and Kalmata olives. That's a great summer dish, and it's creative. It's something that I think is going to do really, really well. We've tried it in the past before and had tremendous success with it. So we tend to, again, listen to the heartbeat of our community. We put testers out there. Sometimes I'll have the guys make things, and I'll bring them out to customers and say, give me your thoughts on it. It's no different than when my mother's preparing cakes. Not every cake that she prepares does she keep consistently on the menu, because she'll know that it's just it's not timely. Like, you don't put pumpkin pie on in the middle of the summer, right? So, but more importantly, there may be a recipe that she found that she wants to try, and she'll bring it in and she'll ask people constructively, what did you think of it? And we've had, again, such a good relationship with our clientele that they'll give her, feedback and say, I don't like particularly the way that crust was prepared. It was too soft, or, I didn't like the lemon zest in that particular dish. And we adapt.
Right.
So, that's your best barometer, right? You can go and just put something out there and not listen, and it sits there and goes bad, or it's never used, and then what was the good of that?
Good of that. And I believe you said that everything is fresh.
Yes, always.
And your pasta is homemade. Is that?
Make our homemade pasta. I shop every day for the restaurant. It's very rare that I get a day where I didn't shop, which means that all the products that we have here are fresh. There's never going to be a time where you had something here that was old or
Right.
was frozen. And it's very important. I have someone that works here said to me, she was at a restaurant, and she went to go cut the fish, and it wasn't fresh. She didn't use the word fresh. She said just the consistency wasn't right. I said, because it was frozen. She goes, that's the reason. I said, yeah, it was frozen, and they know now, because when they're sitting there and they watch what people are eating here, they could see just by when they cut it, they could see the quality,
Right.
and they understand that there's a difference between a frozen product and a product that's fresh.
Exactly. Now, your menu is very large.
Yes.
And I think it can be hard sometimes for a customer to kind of focus on what they want. But by offering so many specials, it seems to me you've essentially focused their attention for them. So you started to say how you come up with your specials, but you have quite a few, I believe. Like 3 to 4 appetizer specials and 3 to 4 main dish specials.
We tend to try to have 3 or 4 appetizer specials. Again, we try to have something that's more vegetable driven, a fish driven appetizer, and we try to keep it simple that way. Crab cakes, for instance, maybe a special for one particular evening. Stuffed figs, maybe an appetizer that we prepared as a special. And then we go into the entree portions, and we, again, same thing. We try to have a pasta special, a homemade pasta special, a meat special, whether it's our veal chop, which is on our special list every day, and we can't
Right.
we can't keep enough of them in house. We prepare it 3 different ways, and the people love it. And then we have a fish special, and I get excited about the fish specials. I do, because I know that I'm handpicking the product, or I'm speaking to my fish purveyor to ask him what came in and off a day boat. And by a day boat, I mean it came in that day, and it's out to the fish purveyors to sell. It's not something that was flash frozen or
Right.
has been sitting in a facility for a period of time. I know that it's only been off the boat one day, and that's important to me because it gives me a story to tell our customers.
Right.
Last week I was in the Hamptons. I was there when they brought in the black sea bass. So that was on our menu last week, and it was on our menu, and I was able to sit there and say, I just came back from the Hamptons. I literally saw it come off the boat, and it's on your plate today. I don't know if it resonates with everyone, but it's important for me to know that I've put that effort in for that person to have that product. There are certain times a year where there's product that's only available certain times a year. For instance, Nantucket Bay scallops. And there tends to be a very, very short period of time in the early, late fall. And when we have it on special, I love to be able to explain that to people, that these scallops, first of all, they're worldly recognized. There are people that will have them frozen and sent across the country. They're not readily available. They're not available all the time. But these scallops are only going to be available for 6 weeks, and then it's over.
Right.
You won't be able to see them again until next year. And to me, that's an interesting story.
Sure, absolutely. Well, last videocast, we did touch upon the opportunities for creativity that your kitchen staff have. So it sounds like it's really a tight partnership between you and your kitchen staff with regard to determining the menu and how things are prepared, and that there's give and take. Am I accurate with that?
It is, and I allow them a lot of latitude in terms of being able to come up with creative dishes. We want everyone to participate. We don't want any one person to be left out of it or be dictated as to everything that they have to do. We had, for instance, our person who's in charge of salads has come up with a great special that we've been running throughout the summer. It's a watermelon salad. And again, you're starting to see watermelon salads on everyone's menu.
Yes.
And he put it together. He put together his own ingredients, and everyone loves it. And when you, again, as I think I said the last time, when you allow your team to become creative, it gives them that much more incentive to want to come to work.
Exactly.
There are times that I will tell them that I maybe want to stay away from a certain way that they're preparing a product, only because I don't know if it's going to necessarily resonate. And there's not a it's done in a way where we're conversing over it. It's not where I'm setting down a mandate.
Right.
And so they understand my reasoning. It's not that I'm telling them don't prepare it that way. It's, hey, maybe you may want to try it this way. And I explain the reason why I want it done that way. It's not that I'm just saying don't do it that way and do it this way. I explain the reason why. And I think it fosters a good working relationship with our team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for our next video cast when Anthony is going to delve into his decisions with regard to other elements of the business operations, such as alcoholic beverages, interior design, entertainment, lunch service, and point of sale technology. We will then start to examine what it's really like to be a sole proprietor. So stay tuned for that wild ride, and thank you for being with us today. Apologize for the technical difficulties, but the great messages came through nonetheless. So thank you, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.